Welcome back to another reaction stream. It's been quite a while since we did one of these. I think the last time I did one was before I went on holiday last month. And of course, we still have a few games left of Double Gameweek 34. We'll be talking about how we're doing so far, but also looking ahead to Gameweek 35. And there will be a deadline stream on the Saturday, and that should be an interesting one. I think the deadline is slightly later than it usually is, so be aware of that. And we will be streaming an hour and a half / 2 hours before the actual deadline. So let's get straight into your questions and comments. We might even also react to the lineups as well. They're going to come out today for the matches and all of that good stuff that we need to talk about. So welcome, Same. Bench one of Grealish, March, Jota and Ollie Watkins. That will be a very difficult one, I think. I think the one I'm most inclined to bench right now is Diogo Jota, and he's actually a doubt for the second game of Double Gameweek 34. So there is also a chance he is a doubt for Gameweek 35, depending on the severity of the knock, which he picked up at the end of the Tottenham game. So I think Diogo Jota from the ones you mentioned. Welcome, JP. Good to see you. Yes, I will be streaming on Saturday. That is the plan. This is a reaction stream, so completely different to the deadline stream, and it won't be a replacement of any kind. Welcome, Patrick. Any Liverpool leaks out, and would you punt on Alvarez for Gameweek 35 for Jota due to his injury? So I haven't seen any leaks whatsoever. There are rumours circulating of Rodri being benched, or a bit of rotation there for Man City, and also of West Ham, but that's really all I've seen in terms of any possible leaks. I haven't seen anything to do with Liverpool whatsoever. Would you punt on Alvarez for Gameweek 35? I think so. Even for Double Gameweek 34, I mentioned Alvarez as a possible punt. He did obviously very well in the game against Fulham, scoring an incredible goal. And I'm not so sure if he'll necessarily start in Gameweek 35, but he is worth a punt, as you put it. And Diogo Jota could be a concern, not just for the second game, as we just said, but also for 35 as well. That would be a big concern there for Jota owners. But ideally, I think, especially if you don't have a treble up in Newcastle or don't have Isak or Wilson, you would ideally go to one of those, I think, to set up very well for Double Gameweek 36, and Isak for me right now is the best forward to buy. Welcome, Sidindra. Terrible week for me. On my free hit, got KDB, and if he doesn't play, Zuma coming on. Just hoping City win tonight and continue firing on other competitions is good enough. Yeah, I think those that brought in Kevin De Bruyne this week are very unlucky. Obviously, he came off a bit injured, with a knock in the game against Arsenal, but no one really thought much of it. And Pep Guardiola, you just know, you're just never going to get a straight answer with him. So I think those that brought KDB in have been hard done by. And yeah, for the free hit, I've actually seen quite a few very good teams on paper, but just not enough points to justify the use of the chip. Welcome, Kat. Luckily, I'm super casual FPL player, or I'm really annoyed about my 9-point bench boost, shall I say. Yeah, I mean, I'm not so sure if you might have a few more fixtures headed your way. Otherwise, that could save your bench boost. But yeah, really with the bench boost, it's always kind of a, I don't know, divides opinion. That's the thing with the bench boost. Still, it's quite an overrated chip in general. Of course, I was quite happy with mine this year, but generally I don't do too well with it. So maybe I'm not a big fan of the bench boost in general because I don't really use it that well. Thoughts on Messi leaving PSG? I think it's just a matter of time. I think the relationship's completely broken down. I'm not really surprised by what's happened. Obviously, I don't know the ins and outs of the story, but according to some reliable journalists, PSG did give him, permission to leave for a few days, and then they kind of went back on it, so that's a bit strange. Isak or Wilson, I think both are great options, but Isak for me, as I mentioned a minute or two ago, is my preference. It is worth mentioning with Wilson though, he's only blanked once since Double Gameweek 29, and Newcastle had 2 games in that double, of course, so yeah, I think Wilson's very underrated. He's getting less minutes, but still doing very, very well when he comes on, so I do like him, but I would rather go for Isak. Hey Dylan, play Kepa or David De Gea? You know what? It is a very tricky one, but I'd probably go for David De Gea. United have been pretty decent defensively, and Chelsea are just a shambles. Now, whilst they're not completely poor defensively, they're still conceding 1 or 2 goals per game, and I think they are worse off defensively with Frank Lampard compared to how they were before with Potter and also Thomas Tuchel, so that would be a big issue. Really upset about Jota, needed him. Yeah, I mean, at least he came up with that ridiculous goal towards the end against Spurs. But yeah, that was a really weird one, I think, with Diogo Jota. Obviously, heading into the deadline, we already kind of got some information of Diogo Jota being a doubt. Klopp talked about this, and we also discussed this in the deadline stream. But it's quite surprising, actually, for him to have this reoccurring injury and once again picking up a knock. And at the moment, it doesn't look good. I don't think he'll start in the second game for sure. In terms of being available in the squad, that's another matter entirely, but you'd be hopeful. Watkins or Alvarez for Gameweek 35? That is a tricky one. I think Alvarez, obviously it's all going to be a minutes issue. You know Watkins is going to start. He's been in fantastic form for a few months now. But with Alvarez, if he starts against Leeds, I'd still back him to do really well. I know Sam Allardyce has come in, and that could be a completely different look for Leeds, and they could be very defensive. But yeah, I think Alvarez is my gut instinct, but it all depends on if he starts or not. That's going to be the big question. Martinelli to Rashford, says Bestie. That is a good question as well. I'll be honest, I didn't expect it at all for him to be benched. He was Arsenal's best player in the last 10 game weeks, you could say, along with Trossard. And what I wanted to see was Martinelli with Trossard and then one of Jesus or Saka. But yeah, Martinelli was benched, and it's not a guarantee for him to come back into the side against Newcastle. Yeah, I think Rashford's a very sensible transfer. Makes sense. He's got a double in 37, and United are top of the fixture ticker according to Fantasy Football Hub. So, yeah, I think it's quite a simplistic transfer. I think it makes sense. And even if Martinelli does well and starts all these games, I'd still back Rashford to outscore him from now until Gameweek 38. Welcome, Fatal. Free hit 36 with triple Newcastle and triple Brighton attack. I'm not so sure. Okay, so I'm guessing, yeah, triple Newcastle overall and triple Brighton attack. I think that's fair. I would maybe go for a Brighton defender, but I can understand why you'd want to go for the triple attack, because facing Newcastle and Arsenal, you'd probably not expect a clean sheet in either game. So I can see your logic there, and I have no problems with that whatsoever. I might actually do a free hit video heading into Double Gameweek 36, and I will discuss that possibility. I do like that. And with Newcastle, I'd still maybe go for a double up offensively. That could be the way to go instead of two Newcastle defenders, but maybe you have a different opinion there as well. I think that's completely fine. So when I look at it, March, Matoma, and maybe Enciso up front could be the way forward for you. I'm not so sure about Undav despite his brace, obviously, over the weekend. And with Newcastle, you're probably looking at Trippier, Isak, and ideally Callum Wilson, but you may want to go for that traditional double up defensively with Fabian Schär. So yeah, honestly, kind of a short answer to that question would be yes, I like that, and that's the way I'd go. But me personally, I'm probably going to go for that one Brighton defender anyway, despite the fixtures being quite tough. Will Salah start tonight? If yes, how many points do you think he'll score? Yeah, I think he'll start. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. Liverpool they probably won't finish top four, for being realistic, but they still have a chance, and they need to be there to capitalise just in case Newcastle or Man United slip up. I see no reason for Salah to be benched, and I think it'll be kind of the same front three as we saw against Spurs from the get-go. In terms of how many points I think he'll score, I think maybe a goal, similar to what he did against Spurs, so 7, 8 points maybe. Who to captain for Gameweek 35? Obviously, we'll talk more about this in the team selection and the deadline stream, but my initial thoughts is Erling Haaland, which is very boring, but he's facing Leeds at home, and I know they're going to be completely different now with Sam Allardyce, but I still expect Man City to win by 3 or 4, and Erling Haaland will start, and he'll probably do a very good job once again, even if he gets fewer minutes than usual. So Erling Haaland is just the basic one. Maybe to go a bit different and go for something, kind of chasing the upside and rank, then I would maybe consider Harry Kane. I think Harry Kane, then Salah, and then a Man United midfielder is the way I'd probably rank it. Also, let's not forget with Mitoma and March, they did extremely well the last time they faced Everton. I think March got 11 points and Mitoma got 8, so they could also be in the conversation. But for me, Erling Haaland first and probably Harry Kane second. Alex says Gabriel to Shaw or Watkins to Alvarez if we get news he starts. That's a great question. I still think long-term I'd rather get Shaw in for Gabriel, but Watkins to Alvarez, if he starts as you say, that's a really, really nice pick. But honestly, I'd still probably go for Gabriel to Shaw. Might seem a bit boring. And then in Gameweek 36, I'd buy a Newcastle forward. I'd play Shaw over Trippier. I think that's fair. I'd probably do the same thing, and I think that is probably the best thing to do. Newcastle forward or Kane? As much as I like Kane, and I think he's a better option in general, with the double that Newcastle have and the form that Newcastle are in, I'd probably go for a forward, and Isak is my favourite. Start 2, Mitoma, Shaw, Stones, and Estupiñán. I'd go for Mitoma, and The second one is probably... You know what? It might sound a bit crazy, but I'd probably go... Yeah, I'd probably go for Stones there, just for the clean sheet probabilities. I think Everton could nick a goal against Brighton. So yeah, Mitoma and Stones. Welcome, Cravadonna. I have the same goalkeepers, and I'm thinking about selling one of them for De Gea. What is your plan for next week? Yeah, to be honest, I'm actually in a similar predicament. Obviously, we have a very similar team, which plays a part. In Game Week 36, I would ideally want to sell Kepa Arrizabalaga to David De Gea, but since I've got Bruno Fernandes and that triple up in United already, I just can't do that. So, yeah, I'd probably do it in your situation. I think that's the right call. If you're kind of set on not getting Bruno Fernandes, I'd definitely get De Gea in. I think that's the way to go. I support Arsenal in the Premier League. It's my local team. Obviously, I support different teams as well, you know, from where I'm originally from and all of that jazz. But, yeah, Arsenal. Start Shaw or Trippier? I'd go for Luke Shaw. I think he's got a better chance of a clean sheet, and Newcastle have kept 2 clean sheets in the last 12 game weeks, if I'm not mistaken. That's just not good enough. Got triple captain on Salah, hope he scores. Yeah, good luck. Hopefully it pays off for you. Yeah, even if he just scores 1 goal, 14 points overall, let's put it, that'd be pretty good. Not the best score, but also pretty solid overall. Will Salah and Gakpo start with Trent Dillon? We're going to find out very soon, but I think so. I'd be very surprised if any of them were benched, especially with the news we're getting of Diogo Jota having a knock and being a doubt for the Brentford game. And Trent and Salah, I just don't see being benched. Gakpo's the only small doubt, but I think he starts as well. If Alvarez starts over Haaland, do I bring him in for Haaland or just keep Haaland even if he's benched? If you're able to bring Haaland back in without taking hits, then I'd probably bring Alvarez in and take a punt. But if it means taking a hit or being priced out of Haaland, that's where I'd draw the line and say no. MJ says, thoughts on Kane, Watkins to Wilson, Alvarez. As much as I like Kane and Watkins in Game Week 35 and also overall, I still think those are some good transfers. I probably would hold off Wilson until Game Week 36. It all depends, though, about the news we get with Gabriel. If he's out and Wilson is going to be up against Kivior and Holding, then yeah, fair enough. I'd say go ahead, buy Wilson and Alvarez, but that's going to be the big doubt. Will Wilson start from the get-go too? It could be Isak and Wilson comes on later, and Alvarez might not even start too. So that's going to be the doubts with the transfers you're making. But of course, if we get news of Alvarez starting and if Gabriel's going to miss the game against Newcastle, I'd say yes, resoundingly. But otherwise, I'd probably hold off for at least 1 more week. Martinelli to Bruno or Grealish Game Week 35? Bruno. I think Bruno. So when you look and compare the two, the Game Week 35 specifically, you probably give Grealish the edge for the fixture, but I'd rather have Bruno Fernandes long term, that's for sure, up until the end of the season. Start 2, Estupinian, Stones, Martinelli, Mitoma, Shaw. I think we did cover this, and as I said earlier, it would be Mitoma and Stones. With Martinelli, I'm not even sure if he starts. KDB is absent from the City squad. Here comes Zuma, 1-pointer. Yeah, I think those that had De Bruyne were very unlucky. Of course, he was off the back of 4 games, I think, in a row, producing some big hauls. And then suddenly he's injured, of course. It did happen after the Arsenal game, should we say, or during the Arsenal game, but no one expected it to be this serious. I think it's not just a precaution thing, if we're being honest, and he's just being safe for those big games in the Champions League. Apparently, Edison isn't starting tonight. That would be absolutely mad. If Man City rotate that much, maybe hopefully West Ham do something. But I saw some kind of rumours that West Ham may rotate most of their squad anyway, and that obviously Arsenal fans won't be pleased with that, to say the least. I'm surprised if Edison's not starting either. Welcome Tech. Hi Dylan. Grealish might be benched against Leeds. If we get any team news, he's benched and Alvarez starts. Is Grealish, Jota to Bruno Alvarez a good move for a -4? Yes, definitely. 100%. Of course, Alvarez might not be a great pick for the weeks to come, but if he starts, I think that justifies the -4, and Bruno Fernandes is great for Game Week 37, and he's also got some good fixtures before. So, yeah, I think, honestly, as you well put it, if that were to happen, I would take the -4 hit. KDB to Fernandes, yes. I have to say, though, if De Bruyne was fit, I would have a slight preference for him, but with him being such a dow, he's always got these injury problems, and maybe Man City can afford to not start him until the end of the season. Yeah, I think that's a no-brainer. Thank you, Sam Garn. I appreciate it. So yeah, UCL Fantasy will be back this weekend. Since we've got Champions League matches next week, the plan is to maybe record from the Friday. So videos can come out basically any time between Friday and the Monday. And we've got the usual deadline stream on the Tuesday. So that is the plan. Grealish plus Jota to Kane and Murphy. So as good as Murphy has been, I'd still rather go for Wilson, Isak, Trippier, probably another Newcastle defender, and also Nick Pope. Even Joe Willock is someone that intrigues me a little bit, but look, it's not a bad shout, and I do like Kane a lot this season. He's been fantastic, but I'm not so sure about Murphy. I think there are better ways of covering Newcastle. Morgan Gibbs-White 1 week punt. It's not a bad option. I don't think it's a bad choice. If you really are feeling it, I'd go for it, but I personally wouldn't. I think there are, once again, just like with Murphy, better options elsewhere in the midfield, and that's why I probably wouldn't go for it or recommend it necessarily, but that's not to say it's a bad transfer, and Morgan Gibbs-White certainly has a big haul in him, as he's shown over the course of the season. So we are going to get lineups very soon in terms of Liverpool versus Fulham and Man City versus West Ham, and if we do get any news, I will try to cover it ASAP, and maybe even show you the lineups on screen too. Be sure to smash the like button, subscribe for new, and all of that good stuff. I know it's kind of a reaction stream at a bit of a weird time, but I just wanted to get these out there and see, generally what people want in terms of these streams, because they were quite popular back in the day as well. So yeah, we'll see how that goes and the response to it. But we are going to do a deadline stream on Saturday, and also a UCL Fantasy deadline stream next Tuesday. So be sure to tune in for that as well. I'll also keep an eye out on Twitter if I can, and see if there are any kind of rumors in terms of any leaked lineups we can get before the official lineups are out. Is Robertson to Trent worth it? For free, yes. For a -4 hit, not necessarily. Whilst I think Trent Alexander-Arnold outscores Robertson by 4 points or more until Gameweek 38, I'm not so sure if I would necessarily do it this week, and if anything, you can wait until the week after and do it for free. So yeah, I'd say for free it's worth it. For a hit, I just wait another week in that case. Jota, Watkins or Isak for Gameweek 35? So once again, if Gabriel is unavailable for Arsenal, then Isak for me is the clear standout of the three. If Gabriel is available and maybe there's a decent partnership forming there with Kiwior, then maybe Arsenal have a better chance of at least, being competitive, and Isak won't completely walk all over them. So yeah, Isak if Gabriel is out. If Gabriel is available, then I'd maybe give Watkins the edge. Watkins to Isak or Wilson? Isak for me, yeah. It's a close one. I like Wilson, and like I said, he's only blanked once since Gameweek 29, but I'd go for Isak. With his poor recent returns, would you continue to hold Grealish? So I still like Grealish as an option for his price. He offers pretty decent value, but yeah, I was saying this even a week or two ago. I prefer having De Bruyne if you have the funds available, and you might also want to go to someone like Bruno Fernandes instead. So if I were wildcarding, and you can see my best wildcard team video, which I uploaded yesterday, wouldn't necessarily, have Grealish as a shoe-in. He did feature in that video, but that was for a more aggressive approach and going for 2 Newcastle forwards and stuff like that. But I think most people, if they're wildcarding now, wouldn't have Grealish at all. And yeah, I think I'd probably sell him. If you can, for a free transfer, I'd say. I wouldn't do it for a hit, a bit similar to the Trent situation too. Trippier and Pope against Arsenal? No. As bad as Arsenal have been recently, I still think they can score against Newcastle. I think Newcastle are probably the favourites in that game, and they are in the better form. But I wouldn't go for a double up defensively Newcastle, and only 2 clean sheets in 12 games. Yeah, I don't really see it. So yeah, not for me. Is getting Wilson for a -4 hit this week? I mean, it will pay off. I think by Gameweek 36 with the double, it will pay off. But once again, it depends on the Arsenal news. If Gabriel is available, then I'm not so sure if Wilson for a hit is necessarily worth it this week. But yeah, I think that's going to be really dependent on Arsenal. But yeah, long term, it's decent. Welcome, Leanne. Thank you very much for asking, and hopefully you're doing well too. It's the same hairstyle as always, wasting, to be fair. Salah to KDB in 37. If KDB is actually fit, then yes, I'd say so. And also, we can't underestimate Harry Kane, even kind of changing your team structure a little bit and going back to that. Or going for Bruno Fernandes. You've got a few options there. So if Kevin De Bruyne is fit, I'd say yes, I'd go to him. But otherwise, you've got alternatives in Bruno Fernandes in the midfield or Harry Kane. Hi Dylan, start Iverson versus Fulham away or Raya versus Liverpool away for next week. Probably Raya, and the reason why is because I look at both teams and I don't see a clean sheet, so it just comes down to who can make more saves and get more bonus points, and generally it's David Raya, so I'd probably go for him. But in terms of, clean sheet probabilities, you'd probably give Iverson the edge, despite how poor Leicester still remain defensively. Trippier, easy sell? I want to say he's an easy sell, but You know, this is the worst, you know, part of the season for him. He was essential at one point. Now he's sellable, as you say, but I wouldn't say he's an easy sell. I remember when Man United eliminated Barcelona and they were shouting, "We are the best in the world, give us Madrid together with PSG." Well, to be fair, fans from any club, Arsenal, Man United, any club, kind of get carried away after a few results. And look, Barcelona are dominating La Liga. They're doing really well there. So for Man United to beat them, you know, they did very well in that case. But yeah, the way they lost that tie against Sevilla should raise some concerns. And you also got maybe 5-6 other results for Man United this season, which are very alarming. I know it's Ten Hag's first season, but there's a lot of work to be done still. Selling KDB? I would wait for more news, so definitely don't do anything now. Wait until the game today and see what Pep Guardiola says. If he can give anything away and be truthful for once, then that would be obviously very insightful. But I definitely wouldn't sell KDB now. I would wait until, I'd say, the Friday or the Saturday, as close as possible to the deadline, and then make a final decision. But my initial instinct is that De Bruyne is probably worth selling for the last 3 or 4 game weeks of the season, which is a shame because if he was fit, fully available, and starting every single game, or at least all but one, then I think he's one of the best assets in the game. But right now, his fitness is a big concern. Thank you, Alex. Final question would be, would you double up on Man United defence? Well, United have been very solid defensively in recent weeks. I know they have a few bad results in them in all competitions, and against the very best teams away from home, they can concede 3, 4 or more. But with their fixtures being quite favourable until Game Week 38, I think it's definitely worth it. Now, ideally, without, you know, budget being an issue and considering, you know, triple ups in other teams, my favourite triple up is Rashford, Shaw and Bruno Fernandes, but I definitely have no problems with going for a double up in the, you know, for example, David De Gea with Dalot, or having Dalot and Luke Shaw. I think that's pretty solid. Grealish, Haaland, Alvarez start for Man City. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, I know De Bruyne will be a bit of a miss, but you'd still expect them to score goals, create chances, and that's a very solid front three. If you ever feel useless, remember Chelsea sacked Potter for Lampard. This is the thing, though. A few weeks ago, or a few months ago, back when Potter was there, people would have said the same thing about Tuchel to Potter. I think the main problem with Chelsea is a lack of direction, and I said this back when, you know, Tuchel was manager and also when he got sacked. That is the main issue for Chelsea. You can't just splash 500, 600 million and just expect everything to work and gel straight away, especially if you chop and change managers so quickly and don't give them time. Martinelli to Bruno or Watkins to Isak this week? That's a good question. I think this week it would be Martinelli to Bruno, if I had to pick one. Who would be an ideal replacement for Grealish after he scores 3 past Leeds? I mean, Grealish scoring a hat-trick would be shocking, even against Leeds, or even a hat-trick against West Ham. I think an ideal replacement for Grealish would be Bruno Fernandes if you have the funds. I don't suddenly think Bruno Fernandes is amazing, by the way, because ever since I got him in, he was actually very disappointing until the Spurs game, and now he's showing a bit of form and something, you know, worth buying and investing in. But I'd say Fernandes is up there. A Brighton midfielder like Martial Matoma, I think people are going to be cold on them. I think Matoma is actually one of the most sold players this week, but I'd still show a bit of faith in them. Thoughts on Salah to Bruno after his double in 37? Yeah, I think so. So I'd probably keep Salah for now for the next 2 game weeks and then sell in 37. I think that's the way to go. Stones over Edison, says Cavish. Ideally, yes. I think Edison doesn't have a high ceiling, and Stones can get 7, 8, 9 points even from time to time. So Stones is definitely the one you'd want to go for. Gakpo and Edison don't start. Wow, I'm surprised with both of them, really. Obviously, the Edison one's a bit more shocking. I wonder what the, I don't know, let's say the logic is behind that. Maybe Edison will get the nod as well in the FA Cup final. Who knows? I'm guessing Ortega will still start there, but yeah, that's quite shocking. And as for Gakpo, I thought he would start, but there you go. He's not completely nailed, unfortunately. Chelsea Blue says, hi, Dylan. Welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, but what he's saying, like I said maybe many times before, football's a game of cycles as well. You know, Arsenal were awful a few years ago. Now they're somewhat competitive, but still have their shortcomings. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure if Chelsea appoint a good manager and have a clear direction, they'll probably be back fairly soon. Robertson benched as well. We might as well go for the lineups then. We still have 7 minutes for the official lineups to come out, but it does look like we're getting all the news already online. So let's wait and see. Let's see anything else we have. Yeah. Gonna see if I can get this up on screen. That'll be ideal. Yeah, I always have a issue sometimes of finding, the team news on Twitter, so it does take me quite a while to get them. But yeah, I'll try to get them up shortly. Plan this week. So if I were to make an early transfer, it would be Isak or Wilson, most likely Isak in for Ollie Watkins. And a lot will depend on Arsenal and, if Gabriel's going to miss out, because Gabriel was struggling for 20, 30 minutes against Chelsea and finally came off for Rob Holding. And if it's Kivior and Rob Holding up against Isak and / Wilson, yeah, Arsenal in big trouble there. And I'd probably make that move 1 week early. Otherwise, ideally what I want to do is roll and have 2 free transfers and 36 and have a lot of flexibility. But really what I want to do, my next transfer in would be Isak in for Watkins. No Edison in the C lineup, Grealish, Haaland and Alvarez start. Yep, pretty solid stuff still, and you'd expect them to get the job done. I'm actually more intrigued about West Ham's lineup, because if it's true and they rotate, 9-10 players, it's just going to be a walk in the park for City. Thoughts on PSG fans criticising Messi outside the club's HQ? I mean, look, I'm not a PSG fan, so, they have their own perspective, they have their own reasons, but from the outside looking in, I do think that they have this belief they're a big club and they aren't. There might be some PSG fans or whatever in the chat, but that's just my personal opinion. I just think in general, PSG, a bit similar to Chelsea as well. They have a lack of direction. They kind of just sign superstars for the sake of it. They've spent so much money on wages and transfer fees over the years, but look at their midfield, look at the defence, and there's a lot of bang average players in there. Obviously, with Messi, I can understand frustrations at him. I don't think the signings necessarily worked as well as they hoped, but yeah, I think Messi's probably the least of their worries at the moment. Robertson and Gakpo bench, Tsimikas and Nunez start. Yeah. That's literally the one I was going to check, Tech. That page. I had a feeling they were the one that leaked it. So thank you very much. I'll head over there and put the lineup on screen. But it's not looking good there for Robertson and Gakpo owners. This is the lineup. Or I'm going to get it up on screen here. So thank you. I appreciate that. Let's now put this up on screen. So Alisson, Trent, Konate, Virgil van Dijk, Tsimikas, Henderson, Fabinho, Jones, Salah, Nunez, and Diaz. So I think someone asked earlier, do you think Gakpo, Trent, and Salah start? I said yes, I think all of them will start, but Trent and Salah were the ones I was absolutely convinced they'll start, and if they didn't, I'd be very surprised. But I have to admit, I didn't expect there to be changes like this, but it does make sense. Liverpool just played a few days ago, and just to keep everyone fit and also happy, and it's not like Nunez and Tsimikas are bad players. They can come in and certainly do a decent job. So yeah, decent lineup by Liverpool. Just a few surprises in there. I think the biggest surprise from today is probably Edison being benched. I'm very happy I didn't buy him in for a hit. What are your plans for Gameweek 35? So as I just said, it's to either roll or make 1 free transfer of Isak in for Ollie Watkins. I'll be discussing this in the team selection video. I'll probably have a better idea of what I want to do then, and I will be recording that video after the Wednesday games have taken place. Priority transfers this week? That is a good question. I would be looking mainly at Man City players and Brighton. I think they're the 2 teams that could score 2, 3 or even more goals past their opposition this week. And let's say in the case of Brighton, I'd see them scoring 2 or 3, not more. But I think Matoma and March could be heavily involved as they were in the reverse fixture. Will Alvarez start in the remaining fixtures? I think you'll get, let's say from the remaining, 6 games City have? Obviously, he's starting today. So let's say the remaining 5 after today. I'd say he starts 2 or 3. I don't think he starts all of them, but that's just kind of I wouldn't say an educated guess. It's just a rough guess, and I could be wrong about that. Thank you, Gwyn. And yes, you can see the lineup now. It's from a reliable source, and we have referred to them before on this channel. The team sheets aren't officially out, but what you see on screen is going to happen because this source is very reliable. We will get the Man City news, and the lineup up very soon. But apparently, Edison is benched. I triple captain Haaland. Yeah, I think that's the only way to really gain anything over those that haven't triple captained him. That's really the only way. Yeah, exactly that, Tech. Chelsea have used 3 managers to move from 38 points to 39. I saw a post like that. Look, I was looking at Bruno and the way that Chelsea played under him. I know it was only 1 match against Liverpool, who were struggling at the time, but I also didn't really see, why not keep him at least as interim until the end of the season? Because with Frank Lampard's recent record, I mean, I don't know. The only positive I saw about that appointment is the fact that he's a Chelsea legend and everyone will get behind him, or at least most people would. Thank you, Amin. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thoughts on Jude Bellingham to Real? Yeah, I saw that earlier. I always thought he would be going there or to Man City. But I'm surprised that it happened, or it's been confirmed pretty much so early, before, the transfer window's even opened. I thought it'd maybe kind of go all the way up until July, the transfer saga. But it would be a great signing for Real Madrid on paper. Whenever I watch him for Dortmund or England, he's very impressive. And I think he can take an extra step forward. Honest opinion on Salah? I mean, by his high standards, I don't think he's had a great season, but, I think you're comparing him to some of the best performing players and wingers this season. He's, right up there. So I don't think he's the best footballer necessarily in the Premier League. I never have, but he's always up there, and his goal output is very impressive. He's very consistent, and he's probably one of Liverpool's best ever wingers and players, and also in the Premier League, you could say as well. Although maybe he's not my style of player or winger, but he's still a very good player, of course. Don't trust early leaks. Trust me. I mean, you say that, but you're going to see the lineup right now, the official one, and this is very accurate. Believe you me. What you see on screen is very reliable. I try not to show stuff on screen that I don't trust. So yeah, I'm going to now go for the Liverpool lineup. I'll put it up on screen, the official one, but you will see what I just showed you is completely accurate. Yeah, we've got the lineup here. So let's bring it up on screen too. So yeah, as you'll see right here, it's pretty much what the Spion Cop just said. Tsimikas and Nunez come in for Robertson and Gakpo, and you've also got Henderson coming into the mix too. So yeah, this is all completely accurate. I'm now going to go through the other lineups, mainly Man City. That's obviously the one that's of most interest in FPL, but yeah, the other leaks as well. Oh my god! Okay, they've put a drawing up there. Okay, that's fair enough. So here we go. This is the Man City lineup too. Ortega starts in goal, so no Edison. I do feel for those with Edison and Kevin De Bruyne, for example. We've got Kyle Walker, Stones, Diaz, Ake makes a return. Rodrigo, Bernardo, Mahrez, Alvarez, Grealish, and Erling Haaland. So yeah, the big news here is Edison and De Bruyne obviously missing out, and you've got Ake coming back into the mix. So yeah, hopefully, as the first comment says, just lose. That'd be great. I actually am very intrigued though to see the West Ham lineup, not from an FPL perspective, but also, just to see if they've actually gone strong or kind of thrown the game away, which was the rumor yesterday. So West Ham have gone for Fabianski, Soufal, Carrere, Ogbonna, Palmieri, Paqueta, Flynn, Downs, Bowen, Fornals, Creswell, and Antonio. So no Declan Rice. He's on the bench, so there has been a bit of rotation there, hasn't there? Or unless I'm missing something, by the way. Yeah, I don't think Rice is even on the bench. Yeah, so there are a few key players missing there for West Ham, but it's not like the worst lineup, let's say. Maybe there's a reason why Rice isn't in the lineup. Maybe Tech will have something there. But yeah, Rice not being in there is a bit of a blow for them. Where do you see Messi playing next season? If Barcelona can solve their issues with La Liga, I'd say Barcelona is probably the standout and makes the most sense. I am not. I'm hoping for a Haaland fraud class, if you could say. Hopefully he does flop, but sadly I don't think he will. Ajax won the first European Cup when PSG was created. They're not convincing anyone they're a big club. I completely agree. They've won so many Ligue 1s in recent years, but yeah, when it comes down to it in crunch time, after all they've spent in the Champions League, they continue to flop. And up until now, Man City have been the same thing, of course, but at least they've won Premier Leagues and they have been competitive in the Champions League. And they probably are the favourites once again to win it this season. Thought Edison was the most nailed one. Well, to be fair, we all did, and that was the main appeal about him. But the reason why I always went against him is because he's been getting so many 1- and 2-pointers, and Man City tend to concede a goal when they've already got the game wrapped up. Did Mahrez start? You can see it here. Mahrez is starting. So we've basically, in essence, got 4 attackers, you could say. But it won't necessarily work exactly like that. So I'll notice that Nottingham Forest are a bigger club than PSG. Well, yeah, even clubs like Everton, let's not forget, they've got 7 or 8 league titles in the Premier League. They're probably a bigger club as well. Aston Villa. There are a lot of bigger clubs than PSG, to be fair. Good evening. A lot of surprises in this game week. Exactly that. I don't think any of us expected the likes of Edison, you could say Robertson, and Gakpo to be benched, and for Kevin De Bruyne to miss out once again entirely in Double Gameweek 34, and for Ake to come back in for the second game, although We were talking about this in the deadline stream, and that was also my prediction. Start Kepa or Steele? I would probably go for Steele, but I'm actually not that confident of a clean sheet for either team. But of course, with Brighton, you'd back them a little bit more. Dylan, thanks for saying Alvarez was a good punt. Well, thank you, Chu. I appreciate that. But to be honest with Alvarez, I mean, there's always this kind of possibility. If De Bruyne is going to miss out or he's a doubt for the first game of 34, there's always the chance that Alvarez could come in. But you just never know. And as good as Alvarez has been so far for you, and he could do really well today, be careful in the weeks to come. I think you'll get 2 or 3 starts in the remaining 5 games, but just be careful with him. And you've also got Isak and Wilson to maybe move him on to in 36. But I appreciate that. Edison and Robertson on free hit. I feel your pain. I really do, because they're 2 decent picks, on the free hit, and you would have backed them to start both games at least. So yeah, that is disappointing. What do you think for Man City against Real Madrid? So from the beginning of the season, I said for me, Real Madrid are the favourites to win the Champions League, and I'll stick with that. But there is no denying that Man City are in much better form. I know Madrid can do really poorly in La Liga and then just turn it up in the Champions League. We all know this. But yeah, I think Man City are the favourites overall, but I'd still give Real Madrid the edge for the mentality. Let's wait and see how it all pans out. But yeah, I'm hoping that Man City don't do the treble. They can win the Champions League or whatever, but hopefully they don't win the other 2 cups at the same time. Yeah, we're saying I'll try to do that after the stream. So we are going to go back to my team just so you can see how I've been doing. I've got 58 points. I took a -8 hit this week. I have gone up slightly to 74k. So it's kind of been a bit of an average week. I think March and Matoma being benched, or March coming off before 60 minutes and doing nothing, and Matoma being benched was a bit painful. I actually went to that game, Brighton against Wolves, and they set their record victory in the Premier League, so it was a great watch. But obviously I wanted to see McAllister start and Buonanotte, and also all these FPL assets like Matoma, but still, a good return from Estupinian at least. Hope KDB isn't in the squad. Yeah, he isn't in the squad, so Dallo will come on for you. Ake's back. Maybe you should have kept him. I actually have no regrets there, because I got in Trent, and long term I would have wanted him anyway. Of course, heading into Game Week 37, I'd probably want a Man City defender back in, but it's not like they're keeping clean sheets or anything like that. The only defender that's really doing well is John Stones, and that's because of his attacking returns. But yeah, maybe in the end I will regret it. But for right now, I'm not that bothered, I'd say. Robertson, Jota, Edison, and KDB owner. That's really tough, I can't lie, because they're all 4 great picks on paper, especially KDB. Maybe I wouldn't say Edison's a great pick, but the other 3, yes, I think they're very good. Grealish is starting. I wish he does something good. Good luck to Mohamed. I hope he doesn't, but that's kind of a personal bias there. Will Salah Hall tonight? I think he'll score. I'm not sure if he'll produce a massive return, but I think he'll get something. Fuming since I brought in Jota for a -4. Yeah, I think a lot of people actually brought him in quite early. So before the Friday, and that's when we had the Klopp press conference, and then he kind of made it clear that he is a doubt for the Spurs game. He still came on and scored that late goal, but got a yellow card, maybe lucky not to have been sent off, and now he's missing the second game. Yeah, no, KDB, I discard. I feel your pain. I know exactly what you mean. 2-2 Madrid, 3-1 in City. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I'll be honest, I think Madrid will probably win at least 1 leg. It really depends, though, because, for example, Modric is a doubt. And let's wait and see if he's going to be available for the Copa del Rey final at the weekend against Osasuna. And if Modric is unavailable, I think that's a huge blow. And I think there's another doubt for Madrid. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, they've been looking very shaky in La Liga, and Barcelona win the competition with their next game if they win it. Ortega starting. I wish I didn't buy Edison. Look, I'm not even going to come here and be Captain Hindsight and say, oh, this is why I said don't buy Edison. The reason why I didn't recommend him is because I just don't like his FPL prospects in terms of his ceiling. 6 is the maximum he can get. City aren't keeping that many clean sheets this season, but I certainly didn't expect this for him to be benched. That's just Pep Guardiola being a troll. Yeah, I guess so, JR. I don't think I've ever had Edison. I might be, lying there, or not lying. I might be mistaken, but yeah, I don't think I've ever had him, and I've never really liked him. The only time I've really had Edison was in UCL Fantasy, and he did pretty well, but that was in the season they reached the Champions League final and lost it. I think March is a keep, and he actually got 11 points in the reverse fixture against Everton, so watch out. I'd go for Isak, but Callum Wilson has been more consistent since Game Week 29. I might even show you, actually, if I can. So if we look at Isak, and he could be my transfer in Game Week 35 or 36. So yeah, Isak's been very consistent since Game Week 27, but it's still a few blanks in there. I think that's 3. But if we look at Callum Wilson here, I mean, only 1 blank since Double Gameweek 29. He's been very consistent, and it's not like he's getting a lot of minutes. You know, only 1 close to 90 here, and the rest is pretty much 60 or less. So Callum Wilson's been very impressive, and if you can get more starts and minutes, then you're probably backing him to match Isak or even maybe outscore him. But I'd still give the Swedish striker the edge. I think he's obviously on the eye, maybe better to watch as well, but I think Isak, for the bonus points, being on penalties and his minutes, is just the one to go for. City ain't winning Champions League. It's an African curse. I mean, in years gone by, for example, when they played Chelsea, I would have rather City won the Champions League. But right now, I don't want them necessarily to win the treble. Of course, you know, they're a great team and they have a really good chance of doing it this year. But I don't want them winning everything, that's for sure. So my next transfer plans is to get Isak in for Watkins, and it will probably happen in 36. But there is a chance I forward that move to 35 if Gabriel, for example, misses out against Newcastle and we've got Kivior and Holding up against Newcastle there. Start Tony or March? Now that's a tough one. I think I'd go for Solly March, but that's a really close call. Yeah, Militao suspended. Yeah, that's the other one. Because I was thinking of an injury and I couldn't think off the top of my head who was injured. So that's completely right. Yes, Militao suspended, and you've got Modric potentially missing that game. And now, I don't think Militao's as good as some people say, but he is one of Madrid's best defenders and one of the best defenders in his position. So it's still a big blow. Imagine captaining Haaland and won't get any rank rise. I definitely don't want him hauling tonight. Yeah, exactly. You know, I'd have a very minimal rank rise from Haaland, so I'd just rather he blanked, to be fair. And also, the triple captainers that maybe are around my rank, they will obviously benefit. So, yeah, my personal preference is for him to blank, and it's always the same case. I'm thinking to get Wilson and Isak by the double, or one of them with Alvarez. Yeah, that's fair enough. And actually, in my best wildcard team video, I showed an aggressive squad where you have both of them at the same time. But if I had to pick one, it would be Isak. Let's wait and see. In terms of mentality in the Champions League, you would give Madrid the edge, but as an overall team, and I've always said this, even when Madrid have won the Champions League, I think Man City are generally a better team, and the Premier League is harder to win than the Champions League. But having said all that, Madrid in the Champions League, you know, they just become a completely different animal. Maybe. The Man City one, you know what, I'm more inclined to watch Liverpool versus Brentford. I think that's more of a open game, or more of a closer game, should we say. With Man City, West Ham, it's just a matter of how many City are going to win by, most likely. So, yeah, probably not Man City. De Gea's not a no-brainer for the rest of the season. Yeah, he's my favourite goalkeeper. The issue is, it blocks you from having one of Dalot, Shaw, Bruno Fernandes or Rashford, or even 2 of those, should I say. So that's the only downgrade or downside of it, but he is the best goalkeeper, I think. Who do you think is the best FPL goalkeeper? I mean, I don't think Edison is. I never thought he was. I did show an alternative, more traditional team where Edison featured, but even then, I just don't like having him in these wildcard squads and all of that. I'd say De Gea is the best one. Do you think Partey's awful? That's really reactionary, I think. He's been awful in recent games, yes, but I don't think he's awful overall. He's been one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, especially in the Premier League this season. But in the last 4 games, I'd say, or 5 games, he's been poor. Even against Chelsea yesterday, he looked a bit shaky, but he's certainly not awful. Real Madrid performance in UCL is far from La Liga, but I think they have a chance for sure. But without Luka and Eder, I don't think it's going to be good. It wouldn't surprise me if, you know, let's say Modric missed out and you've got Militao suspended as well. City win the first leg, but then going to the Etihad, you know, Madrid make a comeback with their best players available once again. That would not surprise me, honestly. And City have sometimes bottled it at home against these teams you'd expect them to beat, like Spurs over the years and Monaco. Transfer Watkins or Tony? It's a tough one. Both don't really have great fixtures. Watkins has been more consistent generally since December, but Tony's been on it since the start of the season. It's a really close one, but if I had to pick, I think I'd rather keep Watkins and sell Tony. I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows. Maybe last week I would have said I'd keep Tony and sell Watkins, and that was also mainly dependent because Tony had Nottingham Forest coming up, and I thought he could deliver big there. So at this moment in time, I think I'd go for Watkins and sell Tony. If we actually check now the fixture ticker, and obviously we'll discuss this more in the deadline stream and stuff like that. If we check Aston Villa and Brentford, Brentford are bottom, and you've got Aston Villa also in the bottom 5. But yeah, Brentford are even worse there. They're right down last with Liverpool and Tottenham away, Man City at home. So yeah, if I had to pick, it's probably going to be Ivan Toney to sell, and it's purely because of fixtures. But yeah, I do like Ivan Toney as an FPL asset, of course, but that has to be said. If we look at the captaincy options or predicted points for Gameweek 35, Haaland is top with almost 10. A huge difference between him and second place De Bruyne. You've got Salah, Mahrez, Grealish, Gundogan, Solly, March, Rashford and Harry Kane, and Bruno Fernandes all completing the top 10. So a big focus on Man City there, with 5 of the top 6 being occupied by their players. And yeah, I have to agree, I think Erling Haaland is the best captaincy option in 35, unfortunately. In terms of predicted price rises at the moment, we've got Estupinian, Dalot, De Gea, Akanji, Dunk, Edison, Gakpo, and a few others like Enciso and Rashford close to going up. And in terms of those going down, probably some Arsenal players there like Martinelli, not really a big surprise, Nathan Ake. But some of this transfer activity will influence the price rises. We might have a bit of a change here because Gakpo's bench, for example, and maybe he's not going to be guaranteed to go up in price before Gameweek 35. But we'll talk more about the transfer plans and stuff like that heading into the deadline stream, of course, and also in the team selection video as well. Let's now go back to my performance in Gameweek 34 so far. We're going to have the game starting in 45 minutes. I'll answer some questions and comments before we wrap up, of course. What do you think about Zinchenko this season? I think he's been good. Similar to Partey, I think, yes, in recent games he's been disappointing. And one thing that I've always said about Zinchenko is that he's not good defensively. At Man City, for example, there are multiple occasions where he was caught out. He's still making those similar kind of errors this time around. In terms of the build-up, his technique, his passing, it's one of the best for his position. But defensively, he's always going to be a bit of a liability. And that's why I say, if there's no Gabriel and you've got no Saliba, and there's a back four of Zinchenko, Ben White, Kiwi and Holding, that's just going to concede 2 or 3 at the very least to Newcastle. So Wilson and Isak, who's starting? I wouldn't say we know. I think it depends on the opposition. Generally, what's happened in recent weeks is that Isak starts the majority and Wilson will start the midweek game. And either way, the one that doesn't start will come on with maybe 40, 30 minutes to go. And if Newcastle are trailing or need a goal, they can make the difference and they can even play up top with each other. But at the moment, it'd be interesting to see if both of them could start the game, at the same time. But at the moment, it's kind of one over the other. And I think Isak is a bit more nailed on. Bruno, really worth buying for long term? Yeah, so he's been good in the last 2 game weeks. But, if we look since Game Week 29 or even before that, it hasn't been, Bruno Fernandes' best season in FPL. He hasn't gotten that many attacking returns. But yeah, I still think it's worth buying him. But then again, you don't need to because you've got De Gea, Dalot, Shaw, and you can double up on United defensively. Edison to De Gea for a free transfer. Yeah, I think it's worth it. I think it'll pay off. Look, I think Casemiro is better overall. But this season in the Premier League, I think Partey's been better. I think that's a fair way of saying it. Of course, United fans will say no. They think Casemiro's been better, and that's fair enough. I just think in the Premier League specifically, Casemiro's been suspended too often. And I think Partey has been very consistent up until, I'd say, the last 4 or 5 games. Pickford or Johnston for Gameweek 38? For Gameweek 38, that's an interesting one. We'll take a look at the fixtures there in Gameweek 38 and compare them. That is a really tough one. I'd probably give Johnston the edge there. I know you look at Bournemouth at home and think that's an easy fixture and they might be safe by them, but I actually think Bournemouth have a better chance of scoring and also getting a result than Nottingham Forest do away to Crystal Palace. So I'd give Johnston the edge out of those 2 goalkeepers in Gameweek 38. Rice, Gerd, Soucek with stomach bug, according to reputable West Ham source, but that's definitely PR, as we all know they're being rested. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why it's not. Because what we heard yesterday was that most, key West Ham players would be benched. It's not most, but it's still a significant amount. And I'll be honest, I'm not exactly pleased with West Ham at the moment. But, either way, you're looking at City away, and it's most likely going to be an L. Got 2 free transfers, Edison to Kepa? No. I like Kepa overall as an FPL asset. He's been great this season, but it's just not worth buying him at this moment in time. I know he doubles in 37, but if you want a goalkeeper, buy David De Gea if you can. With Jota injured, will Nunez start? He is starting today. That's already confirmed. The question is, what's going to happen in Game Week 35 until the end of the season? And I think Jota will be back fairly soon, but we just don't know yet the extent of the injury and the knock they sustained against Spurs. It might be a reoccurring problem, and if that's the case, that could be a serious issue. So, yeah, Nunez will start today, of course, that's confirmed. Is he going to start, for every single other game? I'm not so sure. My prediction is Nunez will start in Game Week 35, but Jota will probably come back into the mix shortly afterwards. Would you play March or Matoma this coming game week? So, just for context, March got 11 points against Everton in the last game, and Mitoma got 8. But I'd probably give Mitoma the edge. The problem is, ideally, you'd want to start both. Do you agree Arsenal players not good in stamina? I'm not sure if it's stamina necessarily as an issue. I think maybe fatigue in general. That doesn't necessarily mean they have poor stamina, because during a game, you've got workhorses like Xhaka, for example. But yeah, I mean, compared to City, for example, I'd say they have better stamina, endurance, and they're less mentally and physically fatigued at this point. I'd say so. But even, against Fulham, I don't think Man City looked that great. Obviously, they were the better team. They probably deserved the victory, but they were a bit vulnerable, and they've shown quite a few of those performances this season. If they, have even more fatigue and stuff like that in the next few games, then they could drop points. My issue is that I think Arsenal will drop points against the likes of Newcastle and potentially Brighton too. But let's wait and see. Would you take a -4 hit to bring in Rashford in for Andreas Pereira? Yes, I think so. If you don't have good bench cover, let's say, then yeah, I think it's worth a -4 hit even, because he's got the double in 37. United are top in the fixture ticker, so I don't think it's a bad hit, and Andreas is going to miss the rest of the season. Thoughts on selling me, Martinelli to Estupinian and Rashford for a -4? And if you get early team news, worth selling Tony to Alvarez for another -4? Yes, that -4 is definitely worth it. As for the additional one of Tony to Alvarez, I'm not so sure if I do that for a hit. As good as Man City are and Alvarez is, and as bad as Leeds can be, I don't think I do Tony to Alvarez for another hit. I triple captain Bruno Fernandes. I mean, so far so good. If he can get even just another attacking return, that's really, really good stuff. Look, I'm not a big fan of Holding, and I think maybe pre his ACL injury, he was looking like a decent defender and a decent backup, but look, the reason why I think Holding's been singled out a lot recently is because Arsenal with Saliba are a completely different team in terms of their build-up, the way they deal with transitions, the way they can also build up from the back, all of this stuff, and his 1v1 defending. Holding doesn't have any of those abilities really, and he also lacks a lot of pace. So you've got the likes of Partey, who's being stretched out a little bit more. He's got more defensive work to do to compensate for Holding's lack of pace and the lack of build-up, and that kind of distorts the balance in the midfield and also the whole build-up in general. Ben White doesn't push up as much, and therefore, as a result, Odegaard and Saka can suffer as a result on the right-hand side. So that's the reason why Holding's been called out a lot, and I've wanted Arteta for the last 2 games at least to change things up and go for something different. Kiwior played well against Chelsea, but I don't think Chelsea offered that much necessarily going forwards. But look, Kiwior's young, he's going to improve, he might become a decent defender in the end. He played well, but I'd still be worried about him against Newcastle, especially if he's alongside Holding and he doesn't have a Gabriel to help him out a little bit. Should I get rid of Wan-Bissaka? I don't know if he'll start any of the next games. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because Wan-Bissaka was United's best player in the FA Cup semi-final, and he's been very solid recently, but it might be a case where in one game where you sell Wan-Bissaka to Dalot, for example, Wan-Bissaka comes back in. I wouldn't rule that out, but at this moment in time, you're looking at United defensively, and I think the best ways of covering them are Luke Shaw first, David De Gea second, although you could alternate those two. Then you're looking at Dalot and then Wan-Bissaka. And Lindelof is also pretty decent and maybe even above Wan-Bissaka just because he's nailed on, but you'd certainly want to go for a David De Gea or Shaw ideally. Is having Shaw and getting De Gea worth it? Since doubling from the same team at the back. The thing is, though, United are keeping clean sheets and they've got the best fixture run until the end of the season. United are very solid defensively at home. I think they've only conceded 8 goals. They beat Aston Villa 1-0, and they're certainly capable of doing that against most teams. So I'm not really that against that. Pep Roulette doesn't spare anyone. Yeah, exactly that, and I'm very surprised by it, to be fair. Is Haaland a must for the remaining season? I think Haaland is a must, at every stage of this season, unless, he was an injured out or missed the game and it was confirmed. At this moment in time, I think he is a must, and he's facing Leeds next. I think he'll start. There might be one game where he's benched, especially if City wrap up the title very soon, which is possible, but I wouldn't go without him. Let's put it that way. Jota isn't starting. We've already went through the lineups. He's not starting. It's going to be Nunez in his place, and we've also Gakpo's benched, by the way, and Robertson's benched for Tsimikas. Yeah, Benzema's, I think, is a doubt. I think you might be right. He did score a hat-trick the other day. I think it was against Almeria. But yeah, Benzema might be a doubt. I have to double-check that. Would you consider Paulinho as an add-on for Arsenal? If you're talking about Paulinho, João Paulinho from Fulham, I mean, he's been great this season, but I'm not so sure if that's what Arsenal need necessarily, if that's the right profile of player. So I'm not so sure if I'd go for that. Should I take a hit for KDB to Fernandes? I'm not so sure if I do that for a hit. I'd wait and see for more information on Kevin De Bruyne and his injury. But long term, would I sell De Bruyne to Fernandes? Probably, but not for a hit. Destined for Greatness says my bench for the Andreas question is Gay, Pinnock and Greenwood. Not good fixtures for the defenders. Yeah, I'd take the hit then for Rashford. I think that's the way to go. Holding really needs to hit the gym. Blood looks like he's got 0 physical strength. Yeah, that's the problem. He's not particularly strong. He's okay in the air. But he's, not quick. He's very slow, in fact. And, for example, what really griped me against Man City is the fact that he's, going up against Haaland. He's really pushing, high up. He loses the duel and he's leaving a big gaping hole behind him. And you've already got Arsenal being overloaded in midfield. You've got Gabriel having to compensate for Zinchenko on the left, inverting into midfield, and you've got holding our position. It's just a complete mess. Already got triple Manu, can't get the hair, but thanks. Yeah, that would be the issue then. I mean, look, Kepa's not a bad alternative, but Chelsea at the moment don't seem like they're going to keep clean sheets. They've also got the worst fixture run, I think. I know in the fixture ticker they won't be that low because they've got a double in 37, but they still have to face the top 4 or the other teams in the top 4 in Newcastle, Man City and Man United. They've also facing Nottingham Forest at home. I think that's the only game where I can see a clean sheet for Chelsea, but the rest looks very grim. No one can play right back and allow White to play centre back besides Tomiyasu. I mean, that's why, at one point, I think against Palace, Arteta did try something where he put Thomas Partey as the right back, and back in his Atletico Madrid days, Partey sometimes played there. For example, in the Europa League semi-final against Arsenal, Vesalico got sent off, and then Simeone put Partey as a right back, and he was man of the match. So that was maybe a alternative solution. They could have put also a youngster there as well, but yeah, didn't have many options. I will be fair to Arteta, but I still think it was clear that Holding couldn't start and changes need to be made. So do you prefer Jorginho or Partey to play alongside Xhaka? I mean, still Partey for me, but in certain games I want to see Jorginho, and it could be both of them alongside each other. And the problem with having Jorginho and Xhaka is that that's a really slow midfield and you can get completely overrun. So as good as Jorginho was against Chelsea, that could be completely destroyed by Newcastle. Their pace and dynamism in the midfield, their wingers as well, causing chaos as well. Your score predictions tonight for both matches? So if we go through the matches, so I'd say 2-1 Liverpool against Brentford would be my guess. And for Man City, I'm afraid to say I think they're going to win by 2 or 3. I'm going to go for, I think they're going to keep a clean sheet, and that's going to really piss off Edison owners and stuff like that. I'm going to go for 3-0 Man City and 2-1 Liverpool. That would be my... Sorry, I say Brentford, by the way. I'm looking ahead. That's the next game. They're facing Fulham now. I'd say 2-1 Liverpool and 3-0 Man City. Look, maybe Liverpool keep a clean sheet. That's a possibility. I think Andres Pereira missing out and Ream. Really, really big blows. But yeah, I'd probably go for 2-1 Liverpool. That's my prediction. Should I do Edison to De Gea, Wan-Bissaka to Shaw, or both? I would do... Yeah, ideally both, to be fair. I'd do both. Also, CR7 to Real, I don't think it's going to happen. I'd be very surprised if it did. I don't think it will. Can't Arsenal play 3 at the back? That was an alternative. So what I wanted to see was either that, especially against Man City, or putting Partey right back, or even Partey centre back, and keep Ben White as a right back. You had a few options there, not many, of course. It's not ideal, but yeah, even an Arsenal back 3 of Tierney, Holding, dare I say, and Gabriel, also could have worked out pretty nicely. And you could even replace Holding there with Kiwior or Ben White, and then go for someone else as the right wing back. So yeah, Arsenal could have played a back 3. They did it last season, I think, against Chelsea, when they were on a poor run. They needed a result, and they won 4-2. But yeah, I just don't see Arteta changing that. Arsenal poor on controlling the pace of the game. They always lose the clean sheet after leading. Yeah, I think against Chelsea the control was a bit better, but still, Chelsea are awful. They're in the worst form in the league, you could say, and Chelsea generally have a problem of scoring goals and causing real problems for the opposition defense. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I think Arsenal, that's why they are looking for two midfielders. Maybe sometimes there's a drop off after substitutions, and also I think a big problem with Arsenal in years gone by under Arteta and even this season is the fact that they only really play one half very well, and then the other half, there's a big drop off, and it allows the opposition to get back into the game. Yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I think West Ham will concede a lot of goals, unfortunately. Yeah, thank you, Happy Human. I apologize for that. Jota benched, yeah, and not just that. Edison, Gakpo. There's a lot of benchings tonight. Hello, Dylan. I have Raya and Ward. Who's the best replacement for Raya for long term, because Raya faces Liverpool next game week? Look, Raya's still decent. I mean, the problem with him is that he's got the worst fixtures of any team on paper from now until game week 38. I think ideally, if you can, De Gea is the standout goalkeeper. Would you play March or Grealish this coming game week, Dylan? I'd actually go for March. Despite Leeds being a better fixture, I would probably go for March. Tierney should definitely have played versus Man City. Yeah, it's kind of funny because back when the FA Cup game happened, Tierney played and he made a really big mistake. It didn't lead to a goal, but City really should have scored from that. And he wasn't really good on the ball, and people were saying this is why Zinchenko starts. So, a lot is kind of result dependent, of course, but I agree. I would have played Tierney, or at least changed things up a little bit at the back. Is Stupinian or Jota for game week 35? At the moment, it's Stupinian. You can't count Chelsea as a team now. Yeah, I know you got a lot of jokes there for Chelsea and stuff, but yeah, I think things will change very soon. I'm not sure why the names are blue necessarily on the screen. If it's blue, that means they're a mod. They're a mod. But I'm surprised. Yeah, sometimes there are kind of different colors for viewers and stuff, and yeah, it's nice to see. Let's see what else we have. Fernandez says, I'm guessing that's Bruno Fernandes. Yeah, I like him as an option. I don't think he's suddenly amazing, and you must have him. And my ideal triple up in United is a defender like Luke Shaw, Bruno Fernandes and Rashford. But I'm not against the double up in United defensively. They've got a very good defensive record at home. They've got the best fixtures from now until the end of the season. And there aren't many teams I'd want to double up on. And I think Man United are probably the best or second best to do that for. So I'm not really that against that. But of course, Bruno Fernandes is looking pretty decent recently. Bruno Fernandes will march for a transfer. I think March might be better for game week 35, but who would I rather have until the end of the campaign? It would be Bruno Fernandes. De Bruyne or Grealish for the remaining fixtures. Assuming De Bruyne returns and is fit, should I say, then I'd say Kevin De Bruyne. Without Tuchel, Chelsea would have been relegated. Yeah, I mean, that is true, but then again, when Graham Potter came in, I think he won 3 games in a row. Remember, Tuchel won his last Premier League game, 2-1 against West Ham, and then Graham Potter built on that and got 3 wins in a row. So I think that period is what saved Chelsea from relegation. Fabio Vieira is young. He's got potential. I think what really stands out for him is his final pass. He's pretty decent in the final third. He can have a good shot on him. But in this kind of left centre mid role for Xhaka, he's just not ready yet. He clearly isn't. And I think a loan could do him really well. And I think next season, if he were to stay at Arsenal, I could see him actually being much better. But there is no there's no Europa League now for him to get game time. So if he were to stay at Arsenal and he's not going to get a loan, he's going to get his game time in the FA Cup and Carabao. So limited minutes, limited game time. He's got to prove himself with, not that many opportunities. And that's why I think a loan is best for him. When is the best time to use the bench boost? Well, now you're looking at game week 37 ideally, because that's the most doubles now. 36 will just be 2 teams doubling. In 37 we've got 4. Look, your team might be different. You might have a good bench in 35 or 38, but ideally I'd say 37. Will Wan-Bissaka play? My cup opponent has Isak coming on from the bench. It will be crucial for me. It's difficult to say. I think if there was one change in the backline for Man United, it would be Wan-Bissaka in for Malacia. So yeah, I think Wan-Bissaka will play. Big mistake when I think Edison will be safe from rotation. To be honest though, I thought he was safe from rotation. My issue is Man City could still, be 3-4 up against West Ham and then concede a late goal. It happened in the last game. It's happened so many times this season. So yeah, I do feel for you there. Should I transfer Salah from -8? For who though? That's the question. Who are you selling or who are you buying? That'd be the big question there. Thoughts on Scott Carson as FPL option? it'd be Ortega, unfortunately. I don't think Scott Carson's getting... Or maybe just for the banter, Man City, you start him in the last game of the season, they've already won the title or something, but yeah, I don't think he gets any minutes. To be honest, I think Chelsea should relegate a season to reflect on their mistakes. But relegation is really embarrassing, though, and to spend 500, 600 million and be relegated is unprecedented. Which three starts for Real Madrid after Kroos and Modric leave out for Camavinga, Valverde, Tchouameni, and Bellingham? Well, the thing is, Camavinga plays as a left-back for Madrid, so that's where he'd play. That rules him out. Valverde can sometimes play as a right winger, but of course, you've got the probability of playing Rodrigo there, and I think Madrid will be targeting a right winger in the summer. So, yeah, I think really when you look at it, it will be some good rotation there. I think Kroos might leave within a year or two as well. Modric as well, you could say within 3 years. So when I'm looking at it, maybe the first choice, midfield three would be Bellingham, Modric and Tchouameni. But it really just depends on the team as well. And Madrid will have a lot of options, that's for sure. But it might be a case of one or two of them being sold this summer. Let's wait and see. Welcome, Ashish. It's good to see you. Thoughts on Anthony or Sancho? As an FPL option, I'd rather go for Anthony. Having said that, I'm not a big fan of either. And I'd actually rather double up on United defensively than go for one of them. Cannot see Haaland starting against Leeds, so captain who? I think he will, but maybe I'm being a bit pessimistic in terms of, the title or stuff like that, or for Man City to go strong in most games. Look, so captain who? I'd say Harry Kane, if you don't want to go for Haaland. Because Burnley just never going to stop on what he did. Well, surely he's realised some of his mistakes by now, but that's why an owner who might not know much about football needs to put the right people in place so they make the football decisions and they can also advise him on what's the best course of action. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it. If Haaland's rested against Leeds, do you think Alvarez captain is the play? No, not necessarily. I like Alvarez, but I wouldn't captain him. If you wanted to captain someone from Man City, it would be De Bruyne. Should he have started, or should he start at the weekend? But really, for me, I'd look at Harry Kane or a Salah elsewhere. I think that is the way to go. Thank you, Mullins, and thank you everyone else for watching. We've got 25 minutes left for the kickoffs at 8 p.m. Hopefully, we've got some surprises today, and we have a few shocks, but realistically, we're looking at 2 home victories, but you never know in football, of course. And let's try to get this stream to over 100 likes, should I say, and let's try to get ever closer towards 20,000 subscribers. That'd be massively appreciated. Also hit the notification bell so you never miss a single upload or stream. The plan is to do a deadline stream on Saturday and also a UCL fantasy deadline stream next Tuesday. We have been streaming for just over an hour, of course, and reaction streams could be making a return on this channel full time. It has been a while since we did one of these, but it's always a pleasure talking to all of you, and we have covered all of the main topics that we did. Thoughts on Big Sam? Yeah, he can save Leeds. I think the fixtures where they can get the points, realistically, are West Ham away and Spurs at home. Look at Newcastle, they have a new owner as well. They've been a bit smart, though. They've been, not spending or overspending. I know a few signings were flops like Chris Wood, but they did weaken a relegation rival at the time. So, yeah, Newcastle have been quite smart so far. Bruno Guimaraes has been a fantastic signing. Isak as well. I never thought he was worth that price, but he's been fantastic. Is Alvarez a regular? I wouldn't say he's nailed on or a regular, but I think he'll get 2 or 3 starts from the remaining 5 games. Which Man City defender for Gameweek 37? It's always difficult because, I recommend, let's say, for example, Ake 1 week, then he gets injured. But I think Diaz is the most nailed, the safest. And I still like Ake, to be fair. He's just come back now. He's been great this season. But yeah, for me, my favourite defender is John Stones at the moment. And Ruben Diaz is the safest. Thank you, Rishab, and thank you very much to everyone else. Ashish also puts his team. Any transfer suggestions, or should I roll the transfer? I'd roll the transfer, to be fair, but you could consider bringing Isak in for Watkins early if Gabriel is ruled out at the weekend against Newcastle. Why don't you hate Alvarez captain? His ceiling is nowhere near as high as De Bruyne or as an Erling Haaland, in my opinion. Obviously, Alvarez can do well. I just don't think his ceiling is as high as those players you mentioned. And also, you've got a few others like Harry Kane against Palace, where he got 16 points in the reverse fixture. So, yeah, it's just not for me. Start thinking to bring back Harry Kane. I mean, I'm not completely against that. I wouldn't take a hit to sell Salah to bring back Harry Kane. I'd actually rather buy Bruno Fernandes, should I say. But, yeah, look, Harry Kane, he's been so consistent. Why, we can't just forget about him all of a sudden, despite Spurs being down there in the fixture ticker. What to do with Chilwell? Yeah, the fixtures are good, but, well, you say good fixtures coming up. Only Nottingham Forest at home is a good fixture in my opinion. The rest, I just don't see a clean sheet. Despite the double in 37, I'd sell Chilwell, and I said this a week or two ago too, even months ago at this point. The last time I recommended Chilwell was probably back in Double Gameweek 29. But thank you very much to everyone for watching, I appreciate it. Follow the socials, Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description below for the Patreon, channel memberships, Discord server, and the FPL League. I'll see you very soon for the deadline stream on Saturday. I wish you all the best for Game Week 35. Good luck, hopefully you do very well. And I know some of you may be frustrated with the benchings today. It does happen, and that's how FPL can be sometimes, and Pep Guardiola. But I'll see you very soon. Enjoy the football.